Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Inventors Launchpad Network. I am Carmine Danisco, your host for today's show of Tuttle Innovation. I have with me the man who is turning the invention world on its ear. This guy's got everything going on, and he's doing so much for all of you listeners, Mr. Warren Tuttle. What's happening, Warren?
Hey, Carmine, that's a great introduction. Thank you.
Man, Warren, I want to say so much because every time we talk, I mean, I don't know how you keep up. You have so many things going on.
Well, when I was a child, I was the only first grader that knew what the word impetuous meant. So if you don't know what it means, look it up. But I always had a lot of energy, like our guest does today. But you know what? That's a good thing. You learn how to corral it, and we got things going. It's Happy Memorial Day weekend coming up.
Oh, that's right.
But we'll be working all weekend on stuff, so it's all good.
Well, what's funny is I catch a lot of heat all the time because I'm always working, but this is an industry that we love.
It's not work. It's not.
Yeah.
Work. You love what you do. It's not work.
Yeah. There's no doubt. And I remember we talked a little bit earlier about a couple more conferences for the UIA. A lot of things going on for that, and some different things happening.
So the United Inventors Association has our annual board meeting, and our guest used to be on the board of the UIA years ago. But we do that in Minneapolis on June 4th. We get 15 of us together for all-day meetings. Actually, the night before, we're going to visit the Prince Museum at Paisley Park. But
wow.
But we're going to spend the day, and we're launching a new website, a new social media campaign, a membership thing. We got two new trade shows we just had at Carmine, Made in America show in October and the largest fitness show in America. So we're really showing people the real way, might add, to participate in an industry trade show. And we're big believers in that. Obviously, you came out to the hardware show and saw what we did there. So a lot of awesome stuff. That's just the tip of it. We're also going to do a nonprofit innovation leaders conference at the United States Patent and Trademark Office as part of InventionCon in September. So a lot of really cool stuff going on. So
yeah, just a few things, nothing crazy. And then obviously, talk about inventions and things like that. What's cool is we continue to do the show. I know we're going to take off a few months out of the summer, and I know we have a few shows left before we go on to ending the season. And you were telling me about this guest that you have on today, and it was just so extraordinary, the background.
I'm really pleased. So let's bring Norm on without further ado. But Norman Goldstein is a good friend of mine that I've known for years. He was on the United Inventors Association Board of Directors, how we first met, 12 years ago or so. He has an incredible background, entrepreneurial background. We live in similar areas and get together sometimes at a local diner, which we'll talk about, for breakfast sometime. And we got together recently. And so it's my pleasure to introduce Norm onto the show. Norm, how are you?
Hey, Warren. Nice to see you again. I'll have the bacon crisp, please, if you don't mind. Right?
Well, I've always said to Carmine that the one show I love is Anthony Bourdain's, it used to be Parts Unknown, and how he interviewed people over food. And I love to do the same thing over food and talk about innovation. And to our guests, Norm and I just got together a couple of weeks ago at the diner. We get together regularly to talk about innovation and stuff. So it's good to see you and catch up.
It's great. It's great to be on the show, and it's wonderful to talk to your listeners. I'm excited about this opportunity.
Well, awesome. Well, we really want to introduce you to everybody, and the best way to do that is to go back a little bit in your history. You have a fascinating background. I don't know if you want to go back to Priceline days, but that's, of course, a story that a lot of people know on the surface. But maybe start there and bring us up to speed of where you are these days.
Sure. So thanks. So actually, my story begins when I was a kid. I was an inventor starting out as an 8 or 9 year old. And so that's progressed over my lifetime in the various businesses that I've been in. And prior to the Walker Digital, actually, was the company, not Priceline. I was in partnership with the Sharper Image and developed a business with them, which was a licensing business, developing products for the Sharper Image.
Wow.
And at the time, I met a man, Jay Walker, who was my partner, who ultimately founded Walker Digital, which was the company that jettisoned Priceline in 1995. And at the time, I was the head of the patent portfolio.
Wow.
We had quite a few hundred business process patents. And that was a magical mystery tour time.
Yeah.
I can only say that it was an amazing era of innovation. And basically what Priceline did was basically the early disruptor of the airline industry.
Unbelievable.
And that was the disruption that started to make an incredible change in the world that we live in today. Anyway.
I don't mean to interrupt, but
sure.
It's so fascinating, and Jay Walker's such a memorable person, and you were his partner. How was that? What type of relationship did you have? Were you guys super close and I guess integral from the beginning, right?
Well, I was partners with Jay in a business that we had as it related to the Sharper Image.
Okay.
And so it was a Univex licensing group.
Yep.
And we started to license businesses to come up with ideas around, the Sharper Image brand.
Yep.
And we had about 16 licensees. We actually started building little kiosks in major department stores of Sharper Image products, which was the beginning of bringing another retailer's product into other major big box and retail companies. So it was a fascinating time. But ultimately, when I worked at Walker, I also managed the inventor community that we had.
Okay.
And these were extremely bright young men and women who were coming up with ideas. And then I guess the segue is 2000, when the bubble burst, the world changed. And at that time, I went into semi-retirement and was looking for something to do. I got into a variety of different charities. I became a New York State mediator and a lemon law arbitrator, which was fascinating.
Wow.
It was community service. And then at this time, my daughter Cassidy came up with an invention which ultimately became the fundamentals of our business. And she had ADHD and some small motor skill issues. And so we had a tutor come to the house to ask her to come up with some ideas to show her writing ability. And she came up with this example to have her draw a landscape of the backyard. And unfortunately, Cassidy wasn't able to do that because all of her crayons were little broken pieces. And so the tutor was very wise and said to her, take a week and when I come back, let's take a look at what you've got. Long story short, she came back a week later and Cassidy had this extraordinary drawing. And the woman was sort of mind boggled at the idea, how could she have gone from a week before not being able to move the crayon on a piece of paper to having this extraordinary drawing? And sure enough, Cassidy picks up one of these. And she said, what is that? She said, it's my writing instrument that I made. And she said, well, where did you get that? She said, well, I went in the garbage and I saw that my dad had given my mom a dozen roses for Valentine's Day. And I saw that the rose stem was the same thickness as a crayon. So I put the crayon in it and it helped me to write.
That's awesome.
Anyway, long story short, that was the beginning of having people call the house and say, we got to get this invention. And the bottom line is, we got a patent attorney, and he said that it'll be expensive and it'll probably never get to the point of being patented. But because of the inspiration that I saw in my daughter, we pursued this. And 4 years later, my daughter, Cassidy, at 14, became a United States utility patent holder.
Wow.
And so she then went on to come up with another version of it with a button that enabled the crayon to go in and out. And so we then had her interviewed in the local newspaper, and she said, this is a product by a kid for a kid. And a friend of ours was the head of a big agency, called me and said, you're onto a big idea, products by kids and for kids. And so with that, I said, I'm going to start a company to be the largest resource to inspire and motivate kids to come up with ideas and bring them to the commercial marketplace. So we then went on to actually produce and licensed her invention, and every one of the products that we developed had a story and a photo of the kid talking about their invention. And so this was the first product that got licensed and actually was sold at Walmart and other major stores. And we went on to develop other ideas. One of the other products that we developed was a young girl, Freddie Zeeler, came up with an idea of a book to help kids know where to donate to charities. because she said there was nothing at the time that enabled kids to know how to put something into a charity if they had 10 bucks or whatever. Anyway, she wrote this book, A Kid's Guide to Giving, which we then had somebody produce, and it's currently being sold. Another product that we developed was a young 15-year-old came up with an idea for her locker. She said all of the lockers are all very boring and don't have lights and mirrors that can actually stay and be removed. And she came up with an incredible product line called Locker Lights, including a chandelier. And then one of the other ones, another young man came up with an idea of a new double magnetic strip credit card that had the ability to put gift rewards in addition to paying for the product that you were buying. And so we actually came up with this product, and it was sold through major retailers. Now, and I can go on and on.
Yeah, well, so let's take a break right there and go. So you set up By Kids for Kids, BKFK. Anyone can go. The website, I'm assuming, is bykidsforkids.com.
BKFK.com or BKFK.com education.
Great. So anybody who's watching, check it out. Go on there or listening later on the podcast. Check it out. It's really, really cool because it really is focused on children. So first of all, Norm, how old's your daughter now, and where's she these days?
So she is now 31, and she's come up with two incredible inventions that we're very proud of. One is a little 4-year-old little girl, and the other one is a almost 1-year-old little boy. And you know, I have been blessed to watch the miracle of the invention of children with my two daughters. And, you know, the double entendre of necessity is the mother of invention is really appropriate when rearing children. I actually have learned from this standpoint that the most incredible invention we don't take lightly is the birth of a child.
Yeah, isn't that the truth? But Carmen, isn't that amazing? We have a 10-year-old girl who comes up with a brilliant idea, a product that they take to market, and it's been sold in Walmart, and now she's grown up years later, has her own children, and the cycle continues. That's just an amazing story. I mean, and that's the thing about kids, right, Norm? I mean, all these kids that are inventing things for you, they go on to become grown-ups, you know, and I'm sure they have just as interesting stories, you know, about where they are today.
Well, you know what's interesting is I'm now watching my 4-year-old granddaughter become very inventive in a very unique way. And, you know, we watch her go through the house and sort of explore everything possible. Yeah. And we can actually see the developing concept of questioning and really learning about what the world is, and always coming up with things that are, in my opinion, as an adult, problematic because they're always making messes. Yeah. But the truth is, that's how we were able to parent our kids, is to let them make mistakes. Right. A la to your point, oftentimes failure is the best teacher for innovation.
Yeah, and I want to come back on that failure thing in a little bit, but that's a great story, and solving problems. And as you're a child growing up, you run into more problems. And exactly. our job, by the way, Carmen and Norm, is to make sure that that these children grow up and inherit a world where they can continue to invent, and patents are still there. And all that. More of that on another subject. But so Norm, I know a little bit more about your background, so I'm going to delve into that a little bit. I mean, one of the really cool things that you've done through BKFK and your other pursuits is you've done a lot of contests, right?
Yes.
You've gotten a lot of media attention. You've been on TV shows, famous TV shows, and even if you want to even tell us about your partnership with Warren Buffett or whatever, I don't know, wherever you want to go with this, please feel free.
Well, so thanks for that. So when we started the business was fundamentally about developing inventions by kids and then bringing them to the commercial marketplace. And we filed 16 patents for the kids free of charge and brought these products to market. And it was very exciting. It was a slow process, as some of your inventors will sort of attest to, because bringing a product from an idea all the way to the commercial finish line is a daunting, long task, and basically not a guarantee of success.
So let me jump in there and interrupt you. It's not easy, right? It's not easy, okay? And it's not just drawing a sketch and mailing it in, right?
No.
And it's actually hard work, right? Okay, I just want to make sure.
Yeah.
Besides that point to our listeners.
Well, well, the fact of the matter is, as I experienced with my daughter, and I'm also a patent holder of 7 U.S. utility patents.
Whoa, great.
The process is anywhere from 3 to 5 years without a guarantee. And in the case of my daughter's invention, she was rejected by the PTO 3 times, and we had to revise the claims in order to obviously get the PTO to accept the novelty of what she came up with. And then once it became patented, and we had a utility patent, not pending, we were able to then go out and shop it to potential companies that were interested in licensing it. Therein lies, you know, the deal structure, which has changed dramatically from when I was in the business, even doing the Sharper image licensing, you know, almost 20 years ago, to today, where companies are making huge investments in marketing and product development and really are looking to get into the business on a shared basis with the inventor, not necessarily giving huge royalties, because obviously they're taking the risk on the front end and are looking for the inventor to hopefully partner with them in a modest way. So what we were fortunate of was being able to get a fairly decent deal. Right. And we obviously were looking to make sure that the product reached the commercial marketplace, which it ultimately did. So yes, it is a daunting task, but perseverance doesn't always prevail, because, you know, there are certain issues in the patent office that cause them to reject a claim. So,
and we'll come back another day and have a second meeting on this, because I sit on the other side of this, accepting these product ideas. But it's fascinating nonetheless. But just because we have a limited time. But so tell us about some of the TV. Have you been on some famous TV shows or the kids have been on and so forth?
Well, so let me give you a little bit about the genesis, you know, and herein lies some of the benefits of being able to be a nimble company. So we started the business in 2003, and then we ran into 2008. And 2008 was a very daunting year when we ran into this financial debacle that gave us sort of a right sizing of our model. And so we made a major shift in our business from filing patents for kids and looking at that as the revenue stream, to working on a basis of working with major corporations and using the result of a contest and providing a student with a prize or a scholarship would be a component of an entire program. And so we were fortunate when we went into business. We had a group of advisors. We had Steve Wozniak, you may know Steve. Nolan Bushnell, and then we had a guy who you'll really resonate with, Don Kelly.
Oh yeah.
One of the founders of the UIA.
Yes.
He came on our advisory board, and he helped us negotiate with the PTO to get the Project Excel curriculum that they had spent 3 years and $8 million developing granted to us, in the idea that we would update it and deliver it on a national scale. So we took the Project Excel curriculum that the PTO developed, updated it, aligned it to the national standards, and then partnered with Xerox, who gave us $1 million to make this kit, a toolkit, an inventive thinking toolkit. And we delivered that toolkit to schools, underserved schools around the U.S. And then I was the recipient of a congressional award from the Black Caucus for inspiring the nation's underserved youth.
Mazel tov.
Thank you.
Great.
So we then took that material that we updated and had decided to use that as a way to build programs for major corporations to deliver engagement with students, parents, and teachers, developing materials that fulfilled a client's social responsibility objectives, marketing, or basically brand development, and then delivering it into the schools in terms of the grade level. And so how we did that is we partnered with the National Education Association. So we got access to the 3.2 million teachers. We then partnered with the National PTA. We got to all the parents. And then we started enlisting other youth groups like Junior Achievement and 4-H, Girl Scouts, Girls Inc. And so we then started to have a database of enormous access to all these teachers, mentors, and parents. And as we went to major corporations, we said, we're going to develop, as an example, one of our first programs was with Xerox, which was the development of an invention contest that we started to then deliver into schools. And there was always a bring home component to the parents. So that required the parents to validate the participation of their student in an intellectual property contest. And in the United States, a student under the age of majority, which is 18, does not own their intellectual property. The parent must consent for the child. So we had to deal with the parents. So now we recognized that if we had these materials that were inspiring invention to a child, they would then get excited and want to do something. So running a contest enabled them to take their ideation and submit it into a competition engine. So we built this elaborate competition engine to be a recipient of students' intellectual property, concomitant with it going home to mom and dad. So now the brand, which is woven into the fabric of the program, goes home to the parent. They're required to come back to the website where the messaging about the program was there, but also a parent section that enables the brand messaging to be subliminally offered to the parent. Therein lies an enormously multidimensional CSR opportunity for a corporation. So we then did a program, we went into the typical youth forum, right, and the youth focus. So we did a program with Mattel around toy invention. We did one with Electronic Arts around developing games. Guinness World Records. We then did one with the Build-A-Bear Workshop. Those were the obvious ones that obviously were synergistic with a company that was by kids for kids. But what happened was, once we started to realize that we're an end-to-end provider, so what we started doing was we built a website for a corporation. So like for Mattel, we built a website for Mattel that was associated with their website. So there was a link through their website to this contest website that enabled people to go to their site, see this educational material, and then participate. So the branding stayed true in the program that we built, and the messaging was consistent.
Wow, that's fantastic, man. And Carmine, you think I'm busy, man? Just think of all this stuff going on here. That's
Oh, you haven't heard anything. So may I continue? Because I think what's exciting here for your listeners is once we got this end-to-end process down, we then realized, because we're a pro-social for-profit, we wanted to make sure that everything we did was a win-win-win for everybody along the continuum. The kids, the parents, the teachers, and of course, our corporate clients. We then started realizing we have the ability to build a website, go into schools, develop programs that could inspire kids in grades K through 12. And we have a team of educators that design the materials based upon the client's objectives to hit the grade level and be consistent with all the requirements, both from a state and federal level, so that the kids could do the program aligned to a specific mission. And I'm going to give you some examples, and then bring it home to their parents. And it became a cyclical effect. Wow. So that the kids and the parents and the teachers all synergistically participated. So we then started reaching out to other retailers. So we did a program for Sears around a toy challenge, Staples around office supplies and school supplies, Best Buy around gaming. And once we started to realize we could get to retailers, we then figured out that the leagues, all the sport leagues, could really be involved in connecting with their next generation of viewers. So we did a program for the NFL around their Play 60 program. The NBA, we did one around sustainability called Reimagination. Major League Baseball, we're currently doing a program for the LA Dodgers around reading literacy. We've done one for the Chicago Cubs and the Texas Rangers. We also work with
Make sure all their players can read too, while you're at it.
Well, yeah. Major League Soccer, we're doing, so all these programs started to engage kids in a whole potpourri of programs that really inspired them. And so we have continually moved on in programs that are in all categories. For instance, We have industrial companies like Xerox, Intel, P&G, Sikorsky Aircraft.
Wow.
All of those we're doing programs.
The New York Stock Exchange too, I remember something.
So in the financial area, we did a program for the New York Stock Exchange Foundation. It was called the Financial Futures Challenge. It was to motivate kids to understand what it is to be an investor. Because at the time we were doing this, there was a whole hubbub about investing and the security of your funds. And so we challenged kids to come up with a way to teach their peers about investing. And the winning young man not only rang the closing bell, but got $10,000. And
wow.
We built his app funded by the New York Stock Exchange called the Oinkosaurus to teach kids about being an investor.
Wow.
So to segue, we also work with Sally Mae, and that is called Make College Happen Without Taking Out.
Whoa. Sally Mae, that was before 2008 or
after?
Okay.
And then the one that you were referring to is about 6 years ago, we were fortunate when Warren Buffett turned 80, and he actually was talking to one of his friends, Andy Hayward, who had a company called A Squared, who did the Berkshire Hathaway annual shareholders meeting cartoons about doing something around financial literacy. And so Andy and Warren came up with the idea of doing an animated series of cartoons with Mr. Buffett's wisdom imparted to kids by using cartoon characters and for kids of different sort of backgrounds. And so they created this series of animated cartoons, and they were looking for a partner who could take all of this wonderful edutainment content and develop a program on a national scale. And we were fortunate to be able to partner and develop the Secret Millionaires Club Learn and Earn program, which to date, after running 5 years of competitions and Mr. Buffett giving out Berkshire Hathaway B stock as part of the prize,
wow.
We have generated 3.2 billion media impressions over the term of this and have impacted literally millions of students and parents.
That's unbelievable.
Amazing.
Carmine, are you familiar with all this stuff? I mean, this is unbelievable, all this stuff.
Oh.
You know, before we get too much farther, are there some questions rolling in from the Facebook Live portion?
I'll check. Usually, you know, it gets further in because of, but because of this, how much stuff we have, we might have some questions. I'll check now, but you guys go ahead. I'll check right away.
But, yeah, no, go ahead, Mark. Sorry.
Well, one of the things that I'd really like to comment on, which I think is extremely important, you know, as my children have gotten older and we've started to watch my grandchildren enter the world of reality outside of the nurturing home environment, we've started to recognize that our country, if not the world, has a lot of issues that are currently going on. And I'm not talking about politics. I'm talking about things that really can impact a child's development and life. And so we have started to put a major focus on corporate social responsibility and some of the things that are really impacting the development of children in America. So we have and are currently developing and are running programs along these lines. One of the things that kills kids the most in this country, besides, you know, drugs, is texting and driving.
Yep.
Big problem. And so we've been running for 5 years a distracted driving program for the Wireless Foundation that oversees the mobile industry to have kids come up with videos that would help their peers understand the ills of texting and driving. And some of the things that the kids have developed is mind-boggling, mind-boggling. We've just launched a program with the Centene Corporation, one of the largest providers of healthcare, a program called the Opioid End Youth Challenge, which is to end the opioid crisis in America. And the next one.
By the way, and arrest and throw in prison the people that develop them. I'm sorry, I didn't mean that.
Oh, amen, amen.
Yeah,
amen. We don't want to go there. That's for another time because.
Yeah.
And then the other one that we're preparing to launch, as I watched my 2-year-old grandson with my iPhone playing games, we are going to be launching this fall with Hard Rock, a national program to prevent and help kids understand the ills of getting involved in gaming with rewards.
Oh, yeah.
That can lead to gambling. And we have statistics and research that actually demonstrates the ills of getting too deeply involved. And I know some personal friends who had to send their kids away to these survival camps because they were addicted to gaming and they couldn't even come out of the basement to eat.
You know, let's start with fantasy football, where some of the NFL owners are actually investors in the DraftKings. But I'm with you, brother. And, you know, the funny thing about with the phone, I was in Africa last year in Kenya in a very rural area, and a 3-year-old girl, I was taking a picture of her little kid. She grabs my phone and she starts rifling through it, like the pictures and everything. She knew how to use it. And I realized kids around the world know how to use those phones at an early age. It's amazing.
That's right. Yeah. We're sort of at the burgeoning stages of really understanding the impact of what that's about along with the internet. So we have to be really mindful of the utilization of electronic technology.
And, you know, Norm, you're so passionate about this stuff, and this is an awesome show, right, Carmine? This stuff
It's amazing,
especially the attention to children, and something that we can all relate to. And I do want to get to, before we end, because time is actually going quickly, more quickly than we ever realized, about some of the other things you're doing today, and coaching and helping in personal behavior and so forth. But Carmine, we usually check in if you have some questions, or so I don't do all the talking here, or if we have some that have come in from Facebook.
Yeah. Just you answered a few of the questions that came in. One of the questions that came in, Norm, was, do you do any speaking engagement anywhere? Some of our listeners would love to see you speak live, and I'm not sure if you do any speaking engagements.
Sure, I'd love to. I actually have done some, and would be happy to work with any of your guests around that.
So people can reach out, either go on BKFK, the website, or you guys can reach out to myself or Carmine. We'll hook you up with Norm.
Yeah, that's great. And then also, Norm, another question came in. It looks like a younger listener. Are any of these kids' invention contests still around, and how can they get involved in them?
Yes, it is. You can go to bkfk.com. We have one currently running. The one for the Opioid End Challenge is currently up and running. We just closed the wireless one around distracted driving, and we'll be launching one in the fall around the Hard Rock Cafe's gaming. We're also doing a program around cybersecurity, which is targeted to teachers. And the teachers would come up with a comic book for cybersecurity. It's called Comic B. So we're working on that as an initiative. And there'll be many others that are unfortunately.
How about school security too? That'd be
yes. Well, we actually did a program for the National PTA, which was basically teaching kids about online behavior on the internet, because obviously with this panacea of openness and opportunity, I think kids are very sort of vulnerable to getting involved in things that they don't even realize they're getting involved in.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
I would agree.
Awesome.
So, by the way, you know, one of the things that boggled my mind when I started looking at the business back in developing the business in 2003 is most people don't realize how many of the current inventions that currently exist were invented by kids.
Oh, wow. Wow.
So, believe it or not, Louis Braille invented the Braille system at 12.
Wow.
Earmuffs were by Chester Greenwood at 15. The trampoline was George Nissen at 15. The snowmobile was Joe Bombardier at 15. The popsicle was Frank Epperson at 15. Superman was developed by Jerry Siegel at 17 with a buddy of his. The first mechanical calculator was Blaise Pascal at 18. Water skis, Ralph Samuelson at 18. And the one that blew my mind was Philo Farnsworth came up with the idea for the first television at 14.
Wow. Well,
and that's just the tip of the iceberg. So one of the things that inspired me was that the idea of kids getting the empowerment and the support to come up with ideation and innovation is something that is sort of mandated by me as a parent to my children. And I'm here to tell you that all three of my kids, besides Cassidy, all are inventors or creators of some ideation in some way, shape, or form.
So let's talk about your son who just came up with a cool item. Tell us about that. You were just telling us before we went on.
Oh, sure. So my son Cody, he has an interesting journey. So Cody also had ADHD and hyperactivity as a kid, and was really struggling over the years to really find what really suited him. And he went to college, came out of college, worked for our company. Then he went into commercial real estate. He worked for Zaggett's for a while. Believe it or not. Hello, this is.
That's him calling now.
I'm so sorry.
Tell him I'll see him tomorrow for Mom's birthday. So Cody became a stockbroker. He passed his Series 7 and 64, wow, and was involved in his early 30s as a stockbroker. And then one day came to us and said, I'm really not into finance. I think I'd like to go into hospitality. Now, here's where it comes as a parent trying to coach their kids. We said, you know, obviously, because he was on a magical mystery tour journey through his different careers, we said, are you sure? And he said, yes. And he started his career as a bartender and then worked from that into becoming a mixologist. And now he has an incredibly successful company called Muddling Memories that does all these amazing events for all Fortune 500 companies and law firms. It's unbelievable, the stuff that he's done. And he's invented a variety of products, one of which that we're trying to get delivered and produced is these things called fizzers that he drops into a cocktail and it turns into a volcano of explosiveness and flavor that is unbelievable. And here is a perfect example of an ideation that's unbelievable.
Hey, the same person who's calling me is calling you.
Hi.
So, you know, it's Norm, your passion is palatable, and that's why I've always enjoyed getting together with you and knowing you, because I feel the same way. Carmen's the same way. A lot of our listeners are. You know, it's not easy, this whole process. It requires a lot of work. There's a fine line between, you know, putting your money up for these things and how much you, but I've always found that the really great ideas that really end up on the marketplace shelf someday are ones that people don't take shortcuts. You know, they go through the whole process, which is something I'm sure you're teaching the kids. Well, we only have a few minutes left, and Carmen, unless there's some other questions or you want to jump in, I wanted to shift gears with Norm. Do you have any other questions you want to jump in here with? Or?
Yeah. So Norm, one of the questions came up and asked of, you know, you've taken, or your family, or have you seen a lot of products go to market? What is one of the major steps that you believe could be a hindrance to just a basic inventor, like a step that is one of the most important to take?
Sure. Well, I think the biggest barrier to entry is when you have friends or family who you trust who will say to you, that's a crazy idea. Why would you do that? And you know, I've heard, I mean, I can tell you stories will make your head spin, you know, about things that people have said could never come to fruition. And the inventor persevered and ultimately broke through and became successful. The converse of that is that I've seen it the other way, where somebody said, you know, that's a dumb idea. And I've had people come to me continually over the years with ideas, and I very judiciously and in dignified way say, you might not want to put too much into that, but it's a great idea. Or most often, I would say, and I think there are statistics out there, and I stand to be corrected, 90-some-odd% of things that people bring to me have already been invented in some way, shape, or form.
Well, I'd say that, and I sit on this other side, that typically less than 3% of all the ideas and submissions might get licensed, and under 1%, you know, even make enough funding back to investment.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's the reality. And I think it's very hard to tell somebody who's really got their passion involved in a product to tell them that it's a great idea, but it's either already been invented, the likelihood of success is de minimis, and all sorts of sort of things that really put them into a place of shifting gears.
Well, it's a fine line, and it takes a lot of wisdom to know when to hold them, when to fold them.
Right.
You know, and that's why connecting with someone like yourself who can, you know, has a lot of experience and can help folks. You know, a lot of us, especially our efforts in the nonprofit world, are spent giving a lot of time back. And I know, Norm, you do that and help in a lot of ways. There are a lot of folks running around charging for this. That's a pet peeve of Carmine's and mine.
Right.
They take advantage of the situation. Win, lose, or draw, they're making money while everybody else is. Yeah. That's a story for another day. But it does segue, Norm, into you not only help children, but you're also passionate about giving back to others. I know as a life coach and other things. In the last couple of minutes, can you just tell us a little bit about what you're doing there? Because I find that fascinating.
Sure. So I like others who are philanthropic, believe in giving is a receiving. And I really believe that wholeheartedly. And so I spend a fair amount of my time. I try to give, I almost think of it as tithing spiritually on a daily basis with 10% of my time. And I've got a site called coachnorm.com that I've set up years and years ago that I use to help people. I'm also a spiritual mentor. I do a thing called spiritual acupuncture in helping people because living in a world that we live in today, there are all sorts of pressures, both spiritual and emotional, that impact us in sort of preventing us to sort of go through life with some level of ease and comfort. And I've been able to help a lot of people deal with a lot of issues, whether it be marital, financial, substance, etc. Because as you may know, dealing with life on life's terms is a very difficult and daunting task. I mean, we humans are on this very brief journey in this world that we don't realize is brief and is filled with opportunities of joy and blessings and happiness, provided we can embrace the world in a very, what I would call, wholesome and authentic way.
No, you're so right. And the headline here is "Go to Norm, not opioids," folks.
Right.
And you know, we'll come back another day and do a whole session on that. But Norm, this is really important to me too. And I don't mean to get too deep here on this particular program, but I feel the same way. And I think as we get older too, we're more about giving back, you know, and that's why I'm involved with the United Mentors Association. We try to get back in a nonprofit way. That's why I don't charge folks. That's why you do what you do. It's beyond, you know, a lot of people give this front. It pisses me off to no end when people sort of give this front that they give information for free and all it is suck them into paying later.
Right.
That to me is beyond reproach. And we'll discuss that another time in depth. And that's something we'll put out. But I believe in what you're doing there. And you and I have had many conversations about this and hopefully more in the future about what you're doing, the idea of coaching and giving back and helping and supporting people. Hey, listen, we're all on this planet together, right?
Right.
So that's what gives meaning to life, right? Without it, who are we? We're nobody, right? So I love what you're doing there.
Well, thank you. And, you know, as I've gotten older and hopefully a little wiser, I've started to put into perspective and right size myself. We humans forget that we're on this globe that's spinning around on an axis, going around the sun in a universe where there are billions of stars out there. I mean, are we really all that important?
Hey, Norm, it's okay, man. I'm reading a book right now called Falter. And what we're doing to the environment, you know, we're going to ruin it anyway. But as the great George Carlin said, you know, from the grave, we're not going to destroy the planet. The planet will still be here. It'll be us that won't.
Exactly. Well, on a positive note,
let's end on a positive note.
So how much time do we have? Because I want to leave your listeners with a
couple minutes. Yeah.
Okay. So I just believe that, you know, we humans on this journey are sort of assigned to not only providing ourselves and our families and loved ones with the best that we've got, but also to just emanate out goodwill where you can, and to be sort of a member of the human race. And I don't want to get too wishy-washy because
are you using the term mensch at all here or no?
Mensch, yeah. Well, yes, the word is mensch, and you know, if we were able to impact, and I try to just impact a small population of the people that I connect with and touch, because you know, I think at the end of the day, if we could all make the world just a little better place in our small sphere, who knows where things can go? Because again, we're on a brief journey on this planet, and we might as well leave it. And I'm hoping to do the same as a legacy for my children, as others that I know are doing the same for theirs. And with that,
what's great though, Norm, is that, and we're talking about the collective good, you know, of the planet and people. But what I love about your approach, and what I think about a lot too, is also your individual responsibility to pursue things, you know, not necessarily collectively or as a group and be mediocre and just fit in there in some sort of, let's I use the word socialism, you know, and just be, you know, but actually provide and be disruptive and change things. And I think that's what you believe in too. So,
yeah. And I guess the parting philosophy that I think is very essential for me is this: our children are 25% of the population, but 100% of our future.
Oh, well said. You've thought that one out. Very good. I like that.
Well, listen, Warren and Norm, I thank you so much for being on, Norm, and I congratulate on all your successes. And what I mean by successes is that it seems like you have created such a great environment, not only for the people around you, but for your family to be creative. And it shows that they are inventors. So everything that you're doing, I congratulate you. Some awesome stuff. And obviously, Warren, you're doing some great stuff too. I'm glad you guys were able to spend some time with us today. For all you listeners out there, please go on out to Google Play, go on out to iTunes, and check us out. Leave us a review. It would be awesome. And for myself, Carmen Denisco, for Mr. Norm Goldstein and Warren Tuttle, we thank you for listening today. And we'll catch you next time on Inventors Launchpad Network and Tuttle Innovations. You all take care.
Thank you.